This just in, breathing oxygen is linked to staying alive. And today's top story, if you like drinks, you're gonna love Drizzly. Drizzly is the #1 app for alcohol delivery, where you can compare prices on the biggest selection of beer, wine, and spirits, and get them all delivered to your door in under 60 minutes. Sources say that it all can be done on the Drizzly app or on drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com. Back to you, Tom.
How about we heat things up tonight?
How so?
Get a little fresh, add some steam, sizzle, and spice.
Wait, you're talking about going to Outback again, aren't you? Fire things up at Outback Steakhouse. For a limited time, try our bloomin' fried shrimp or get fresh with our new strawberry salad. Go big with our bone-in ribeye or the filet and grilled shrimp on the barbie. Then cool off with a cucumber crush or peanut koala. Try them all before they're gone. Let's Outback.
All right, everybody. It is Wednesday night, October 26th, 2022. Almost Halloween. We are almost there, inching ever so close to my favorite holiday of the year. This is the Mindless Wrestling Podcast, part of the Chairshot Radio Network. You can find us on thechairshot.com. I'm going to go around the room and introduce this interesting cast of characters we have with us here tonight. First, a man hailing from the Purple Haze and Cloud 9. A man destined to go through a barbershop window, Bucky's tag team partner. Jason, how you doing, sir?
Friends, how are we?
Oh, we are hanging in there, buddy. Ready for another fun episode this week.
Awesome.
And longtime co-host from the Rob the Genius podcast, the Minister of Truth, the Deacon of Data, the Father of Facts and Figures, the Shoot Bear of the Mindless Wrestling Podcast, the man with the golden shovel, Mr. Rob. How you doing tonight, Bubba?
All right, and we're gonna get somebody tonight too.
Rob has the shovel shined up and ready to go tonight, and I think
I was gonna say he's got a little checklist that he's working his way down, and I think we're on our next victim today.
Rob is checking off the boxes week after week after week, and tonight another one falls at his feet. So we have got a lot to talk about tonight. We're going to kick off the show talking about Halloween Havoc. The NXT pay-per-view was this past Saturday. I've got some thoughts about the pay-per-view in general, and I'm going to shoot right out of the box and say this was not one of my more favorite overall. Overall, it was not one of my favorite NXT pay-per-views. There were moments in it that I thought were incredible. There were spots in there that, I popped for. A couple spots that just for me as fans of certain people on the card emotionally hit the right notes for me. But in general, I don't know. I won't say it was a miss, but it wasn't a home run for me either. Jason, what about you?
I'll agree with that. I don't regret watching the show, obviously, but it was definitely one of those shows that felt like a really, really good NXT. Like one of those, hey, we're calling this one the Great American Bash or whatever they do. So it felt like one of those. Like there were some high spots for sure, and the whole vibe of the thing was really cool. The Halloween theme, obviously, with kick ass. Everything looked great. So yeah, it was a show that happened. And again, and as we're going to get into with the card, I don't think anything like earth-shattering happened in terms of. We have a North American champion again, but other than that, same old, same old.
Rob, what about you, sir?
I'm kind of in you guys' same boat. There was some stuff I thought was very good, and there are some things that I will probably never watch again. So if I watch the show again, there's some stuff I'll probably just will skip over, and thankfully it was in the middle of the show, so I can just skip right past, But yeah, it was. I guess it wasn't the best, but it definitely has some bright spots.
Yeah. All right. Well, why don't we go match by match down the card and give our thoughts and kind of pick some things apart here. Going to start off. They kicked off the show with what for me ended up being the match of the night for the North American title, the ladder match. We had Nathan Frazier, Wesley, Carmelo Hayes, Von Wagner, and Oro Mensah, which most of us are still being introduced to, duking it out in what ended up being one hell of a good ladder match for the North American Championship. And Rob mentioned a couple weeks ago, these ladder matches can go one of two ways. They can either feel like a spot fest, or they can feel like a fight that involved ladders. And I think this one was the best mix of all of that. Like, there were definitely some times in there where, it felt like they're setting things up just for the next spot. But then there were genuinely some times in there where it felt like these guys are trying to win a competitive match. Jason, just your thoughts in general on that match.
You took the words right out of my mouth. And he did the best of both worlds, just in terms of a lot of the mat wrestling and the strategy of the ladder and the placement thereof and knocking it down and, okay, now set it up over here and et cetera, et cetera. The movement of that all felt logical. Nobody just went and got a ladder for, and then like set it up on the announce table or something stupid. It felt like a real fight, that the objective was to get to the top. So, and yeah, they had just enough spots, where, okay, if you have Carmelo Hayes and Nathan Frazier and Wes Lee in a match, and then nothing against Oro, because I just don't know enough about him, and I haven't seen him wrestle enough. But you have those three guys, and Oro is very capable, and Von Wagner, whatever I may think of the dude, when the bell rings, the guy's capable. So you have those guys in that match. Yeah, I want to see a couple of crazy, ridiculous spots over the ropes and over the ladder, et cetera, et cetera. And we got those. And it was a lot of fun. And in the end, right man won. So hats off to that match. That was a perfect way to kick off the show.
Rob, what about you, sir?
Well, we're talking about bright spots. Well, this was the brightest spot of the show, in my opinion. Like I said, it was the match of the night. And I agree with what y'all were saying about being the right mix of spots versus actually trying to fight. And now I picked Frazier to win, going in, but I think Wes is absolutely a right choice to win that. And because look, they had the story set up, especially if you remember about a month or so ago, Carmelo and Trick beat him up in the locker room to take him out of the match that he was supposed to have that night. And so I think he was a right choice. I think you could have gone several ways, and I think it would have been fine as far as the winner. I think West was definitely a correct choice. And like I said, there were some crazy spots. And for me, though, the best way to sum this, all right, there was one where Carmelo was on the second rope, and then Frazier jumped up there and did like a Spanish fly off the second rope.
That was incredible, onto the ladder. And it was like perfectly executed. And just, my God.
And that's really stuck out to me because, like, of course, that's one of those spots. Yes, on paper, it's dumb and ridiculous. But the key, if you're going to do the dumb, ridiculous thing that is not really necessary, then you need to execute it right. And also, you need to execute it fast, because he got up there, he grabbed him, and they did the flip. They did it like boom, boom, boom. And that way, when you do that, even though, again, it's a ridiculous, unnecessary move, that's the difference between the move looking like, that's the difference between, oh, that was really cool, and, oh, what did you do that for?
Yeah.
I didn't know what he was trying to pull off until they had sprung off the ropes. So they had done it that quickly and that suddenly and that smoothly that I was like, well, what does even happen? Oh, a Spanish fly. Holy crap. Sorry, I just had to get in there because one of my favorite spots of the night.
Oh,
they just smoked it.
And again, you got to do that stuff fast. You cannot take 30 seconds to climb up the ropes so everybody can see the two of you hooking each other's arms and then jumping backwards.
Rob, it literally looked like when you get someone with a grab move in a fighting game. Yeah. Like, you just get close, your arms make a certain motion, and then all of a sudden the animation starts and you don't have to do anything.
Yep.
And that's exactly how it looked. It just was like, He hit X and A at the same time, and boom, we were Spanish flying.
We went right into the cutscene.
Right, and if you're gonna do that move during the match, that's how you need to do it. And another thing, well, it's like really obvious after about 30 seconds who trained Frazier. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's one of the most obvious tells as far as who trained him.
Yep.
Dude, they move the same, they sell the same, they emote the same. It's so funny.
Yeah, I'm just sitting there watching Frazier, and I'm like, my God, that's him. That's going to be him. And like,
yes.
Another spot of the night for me came from a guy who, quite frankly, I could have cared less about in this match. That was Von Wagner, and that's when he yeeted Wes Lee.
Oh yeah.
Onto the announce table. And honestly, man, I thought I've been pulling for Wes Lee like since like his personal stuff and all the involvement and everything that happened there. I've been rooting for this guy as a solo competitor since they brought him back in and he cut that first promo. But when he got yeeted, man, I'm like, oh, this dude, I got to pick another winner because he's done for the night. It was like one of those commentary things like what Jerry Lawler used to do back in the day. Jerry, who you got tonight? He's like, I've got William Regal tonight. William Regal was getting his ass kicked. He's like, well, I've got The Rock tonight. Well, no, I've got Regal again. That was me on Saturday night with my picks for the ladder match.
Nice. I just wanted to note,
and then I was like, all right, well, maybe they're just going to stick with Carmelo because Wes just got tossed into oblivion.
I just want to note for everyone listening, if this is your first time listening to the podcast, no, we're not those nerdy wrestling fans. If you didn't know, Nathan Frazier was trained by Seth Rollins.
Yes.
Black and Brave is the name of the school, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah, Black and Brave.
Yeah.
Yeah, all in all, the right guy won. I'm so happy for Wes Lee. This guy has just been killing it, not only in the ring, but on the mic. And, when they were, doing the tag team things, I really had no real good feel as to whether or not either one of those guys was going to be a breakout star. Those doubts have all been squashed as of Saturday night. The guy is 100% cooking.
Yeah, and again, like I said, I don't do the you deserve it thing very often. That guy has been through a lot. His partner got released, and because he was stupid basically, and Wes was just out there. He was out there just left on his own. Look, I was worried for the man. I thought that he was just going to be a victim of circumstance. Just, hey man, sorry that your partner's an idiot, but we don't have nothing for you right now. We really don't have anything for you because we had figured on both of you being here, and I really thought that might happen to him. He might just wrong place, wrong time, and
Yeah, kudos to Sean and NXT for finding a lane for that guy pretty quickly.
Oh yeah, that is to their credit that they found something for him, because they could have just left him hanging, and just quietly let him go later on in the year, and they didn't do that. And again, they found him something to do, and they didn't just like have him jobbing out for the rest of the year or something.
No, they slotted him in for something and just kept right on moving, man, and that's awesome.
Yeah,
awesome for him and awesome for the product.
Yeah, and he stepped in, and because he was put in a spot he was not ready for, or he was not thinking he was going to have to occupy, and
he had to shift gears very quickly.
Yeah. He had to shift. He had to go from point A to point Z, and he had to do it fast, because had he failed to adapt, as understandable as it would have been if he did, if he had failed to adapt, then he'd been out of there.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on down the card to a match that there's a part of me that feels bad for saying this, because there were aspects of the match that I enjoyed. This ended up being one of the low points of the match to me. Grayson Waller versus Apollo Crews in, quite frankly, an unnecessary casket match. Neither one of these guys has any type of spooky gimmick, and I get it. It's a Halloween themed pay-per-view, so you've got to have some type of gimmicked up thing. For me, I enjoyed the wrestling. Like, the wrestling spots in that match were really good. Everything involving the casket sucked. these two guys had no business dinking around with a casket at all. I mean, I popped a little bit for the Grayson Waller when he took the bump through the first casket, or was it? Did Apollo go through the casket?
It was Apollo, I think.
It was Apollo. You're right. Apollo took the bump. Because I'm looking at the first casket. It comes out. I'm like, God, you guys couldn't have afforded a better looking casket. Well, that question was answered about halfway through the match when Apollo went through it. They did the Druids thing. The lights went out, and Apollo's standing on a ramp, and they're bringing out an actual more realistic looking casket. This one, like I said, I like Apollo Crews. I like Grayson Waller. The match itself was fine. The stuff with involving the casket was just kind of kept taking me out of it. Rob, what do you think?
Okay, well.
Is it shovel time?
It's that time.
Oh, it's shovel time. Here it comes, ladies and gentlemen. Shovel time.
Okay. I didn't really focus on much of the wrestling part because the rest of the match, like you said, all that stuff, other stuff was shit. And then when he fell through the first casket, and then I'm sitting there like, okay, so, and then no, it wasn't, and then he, then the whole thing with then the Druids bring out the other coffin, and then he's standing in the ramp. I'm like, what is this? And from that point on, I was done. I mean, I was just like, this is shit. I'm sorry. And like you said, they're both better than this. I would have rather have just seen a straight up wrestling match of some kind with them, or some other silly gimmick instead, right? Instead of this was horrible. And again, the casket matches are for the Undertaker, right? I mean, if he's not involved, then what are we doing, right? And since he's not wrestling no more, I think we can retire the casket match as a gimmick. And here, this was dumb. Didn't fit either guy. The Druids bringing out the second casket was stupid. And I couldn't even get into the rest of it because I was just taken out of that because this is just dumb.
All right. Jason, your thoughts?
I have nothing else to add. It was dumb. And it was two guys I really like in a match that I did not give a shit about.
Wow. So we turned this from a casket match to a buried alive match.
Yeah, hey,
that's what happened in this segment.
And it's not always sunshine and rainbows. The WWE NXT can do no wrong on the Mindless Wrestling podcast. This was a miss.
We try to keep it fair. Yeah. We do. When they don't get it right, we're gonna lean on them and let them know that, at least in our opinion, we didn't think they got it right. And I agree with Rob. If there's no Undertaker, it's time to retire the casket match.
And the buried alive match while we're at it. Just, those should go away with the Undertaker.
Yep. They should have retired with him, and that was it.
Yeah. And then the confusion with the spot of, oh no, he didn't go through you have to put him in the casket and shut the top. Going through the casket doesn't count. And like this whole thing with the ref, I'm just like, that took way too long. It should have just been the ref should have just like, no, you have to put him in the casket, close the casket. That's it.
Yeah.
And then if he does that, it says it a couple of times, obviously, so that the camera can pick it up. But then we just move on. Okay, cool. But that was just like, what are we even doing here?
Yeah. So again, this is no fault of Apollo or Grayson Waller. They did the best they could with what they had. Two amazing talents that got put in an impossible situation.
Correct.
Moving on to a match that I was really looking forward to, Roxanne Perez and Cora Jade in a Weapons Wild match. Basically ends up being like an Extreme Rules match. Man, this one's been building for a couple months now, and I was really, really, really hoping to see something special here. And I'm trying to remind myself that both of these girls are early 20s. They've been in the business less than 5 years. There's still a lot of cooking for both of them to do. So in keeping it fair to them, I did not think this was a great match. I thought the finish was awful with the table bump. With the big table bump at the end. The whole thing was set up poorly. It looked like shit. There were things that I enjoyed, but all in all, just didn't enjoy this match. Found myself actually staring at my phone quite a bit. And that's rude to say because I was really hopeful for more. And I'm hopeful for better from them. I think in 5 years, I'm going to be having, I think in 2 years, I'm going to be having a much different opinion of the two of them wrestling each other. But for me, this match was not it. Rob?
Yeah, like I said, I didn't think it was terrible. It wasn't like that other Extreme Rules match I had buried a couple weeks ago. But
hey, they can both swing. They can both swing a weapon, so that wasn't a problem.
And I'll say this: it felt to me like this was their first time doing it, which it probably was, because to me they were just kind of going slow motion, like just to make sure they did everything right. And then except for, of course, the table thing was bad. And then and to me the whole climbing up on the thing, to me that was an example of a spot that's way too contrived and where it's obvious where what's going to happen and all.
And that I'm not going to lean on the girls. That's a production thing.
And honestly, I'm not going to put any of this on them because, like you said, they're both 20, 21 years old. This was probably their first time doing this kind of match under these kind of circumstances. And look, and they're probably going to be, Kevin and Sammy, Sasha and Bailey, Charlotte and Becky on the main roster where they're just fighting off and on through the years. So I think they will get plenty of chances to do this in the future on the main roster, and it'll be a lot better.
Yeah.
But again, no fault of theirs. I just think it looked like they were doing it for the first time, which they probably were. And I would probably have not either booked this particular stipulation match or I would have laid it out differently because it wasn't suited for what they're good at right now. And I think we forget because both of them are so good in the ring for their age, especially, that we forget that they're 20 and 21 years old. So, of course, we get reminded of that this time, and it's no fault of their own. And for me, this is one of those reasons why I say don't rush these folks. Look, most of these folks in the NXT now are super young. So I know that people don't like the idea of folks staying down there for a really long time, but they got some really super young folks down there right now, and they don't need to rush these folks off the roster. And there's a lot of room anyway, but this is an example of why. Because if they had done this same match on the main roster and executed it the exact same way, they'd be getting buried.
They'd be in catering within 2 weeks.
Yeah, and and so again, not great, not their fault. They'll probably be doing this type of thing again next year for the NXT Women's title, and it'll be better.
Yep, that's why you're there, and people need to remember that. Jason, what about you, Bubba?
The hive mind strikes again. The two people we really like in a match that was fine, and just there were some spots that were just like, why'd you even try that? Like the table spot at the end, and it's like, back to the drawing board. We'll get them again next time, Bubba.
Yeah. But I probably need to start an argument again tonight because this isn't very compelling so far.
Yeah, unfortunately.
All right, let's move on. This is a match that for me ended up being a tale of two matches. It was Julius Creed versus Damon Kemp with Brutus Creed's career in NXT on the line in an ambulance match. This was a tale of two matches for me. The first half of the match I thought was just a dogfight. I was into it, man. These guys Damon Kemp is so good. Julius Creed, obviously the Creed brothers, need no further putting over. Damon Kemp was one guy I've talked about on here for a little while. You better keep an eye on him. I know all eyes are on his brother because of who his brother is. Damon Kemp's a fucking worker. And the dude is believable. He's legit. The first half of this match I enjoyed. And then we hit what felt like the 38-minute mark. And I know I'm exaggerating there. That's a little bit of hyperbole. But I felt like this match went on easily 10, maybe even 15 minutes longer than it should have. I completely fell off of this match the last 10 minutes. Jason, what do you think?
It was violent in the very beginning. That was awesome. And Damon Kemp, I know obviously we've talked about the Creeds a lot, but Damon, like, he does not. How long has he been doing this?
Not long.
Like a couple of years?
He just got out of
If
college
that?
too. He just got out of college. not
So
too long
like,
ago.
yeah, it's incredible to see that guy work, and how good he is at the little things again, like the selling, the emoting, that kind of stuff. And I mean, yeah, and then I felt like it kind of slowed down a little bit, but overall, I enjoyed it. It was probably one of the higher spots on the card for me, but I also just enjoy, two gargantuan men slapping the crap out of each other. So I enjoy it. That was one of the more enjoyable ones for me.
Okay, Rob, are you gonna round out the hive mind, or?
Well, okay, because honestly, I was kind of zoned out during this. I remember a few things, and then I remember the ending. So I don't really have a grade for this particular match because, again, it did feel long. I don't know how long it was, but it did feel long. Because for me, like the previous two matches, they kind of did a number. So I wasn't all the way back, for this. The parts I do remember were good. I think it did go long. Yeah, I'll echo you guys about Damon Kemp, and now I'm wondering if he was just a throw-in for his brother. Because if so, then this is something else here. Because this guy is really good. He is, and he's really good at talking too, and everything. And he's good at playing a wrestling villain. Because the whole thing with him being behind the attack and all of this stuff when because everything was pointing to Roddy being the jerk behind everything, and then it ended up being him. He played that off. He played that very well. I've just been very surprised at everything from him. From the ring work to the character work, and I don't think well, look, Sean and Hunter must have seen it, obviously. But the rest of us didn't. None of the rest of us saw this coming with this guy.
Well, like I said, all eyes were on Gable Steveson because of his, his very public amateur career.
Yeah.
With the Olympics and everything like that, and all eyes were on him. And quietly, his brother, became a sleeper, a worker.
And Damon had a pretty good career himself. And that's the thing. He wrestled at Minnesota. He was in the Pan American Games. I'm looking at it here. Bio here.
God, does Minnesota just pump out wrestling beasts?
I think so. Because
when you look down the history of wrestling of all the legitimate people who have come out of Minnesota, like it is just the breeding ground for awesome pro wrestlers.
Yeah. And Minnesota, Iowa, a couple of those places.
It's all those corn-fed Midwest boys.
Yeah. And so it's he was University of Minnesota Pan American Games champion.
There you go.
So he's no slouch himself.
Yeah.
As far as amateur career.
Yeah, and, I'm looking forward to that guy. He's got a bright career ahead of him. Damon Kemp does.
Yeah, and of course, look, the Creed brothers are great. We know that. And I guess one other thing because Tuesday night we saw the continuing of the story. We saw the return of Veer and Sanga. That's that guy.
Sanga, yeah.
Yeah,
Sanga?
they were tag team again. In the show, they're back together and they attacked the Creed.
This just in, breathing oxygen is linked to staying alive. And today's top story, if you like drinks, you're gonna love Drizzly. Drizzly is the #1 app for alcohol delivery, where you can compare prices on the biggest selection of beer, wine, and spirits, and get them all delivered to your door in under 60 minutes. Sources say that it all can be done on the Drizzly app or on drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com. Back to you, Tom.
How about we heat things up tonight?
How so?
Get a little fresh, add some steam, sizzle, and spice.
Wait, you're talking about going to Outback again, aren't you? Fire things up at Outback Steakhouse. For a limited time, try our bloomin' fried shrimp or get fresh with our new strawberry salad. Go big with our bone-in ribeye or the filet and grilled shrimp on the barbie. Then cool off with a cucumber crush or peanut koala. Try them all before they're gone. Let's Outback.
Brothers Tuesday.
Talking about meaty men slapping meat.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you what, man, we went to an NXT. Brutus is like I know everybody looks at Julius because he's a little bit better chiseled and things like that. When we went to the NXT live show here a couple months ago, man, Brutus, want to talk about somebody trying to hype up the crowd. Like, you get those guys on the outside that are waiting for the hot tag, and some of them are just like, yay, let's go team, woohoo. And they're like, not. This dude was jumping around, bouncing around, trying to hype this crowd up. Brutus was a hell of a lot of fun.
Nice.
So, yeah.
All right. So let's move on to a match that actually ended up being a tale of two matches for the Women's NXT Championship. Mandy Rose versus Alba Fire. And, dude, like somewhere like maybe in the first third of the show, we had the return of the cinematic match. And it was a thing, and it was interesting because that took place right before the casket match did.
Yeah.
So in my head, I'm like, oh, shit, they're doing the casket match? This might actually be pretty awesome because as far as I know, there haven't been any women's casket matches in WWE. So in my head, completely forgetting that the casket match was Apollo Crews and Grayson Waller, they lead right into this cinematic match with Mandy Rose and Gigi Dolan and Jacy Jayne all showing up after Alba Fire called them, to this building. So I'm like, oh shit, they're doing the casket match. This is going to be like a cinematic casket match. I'm here for this, right? Because I popped for the cinematic matches. I laughed my ass off through that whole segment. Just Gigi Dolan was laugh out loud hilarious. Mandy Rose was it was such a parody of bad 90s horror flicks.
Yes.
And a lot of people missed that because a lot of people on my time like, what is this shit? This one needs acting classes. I'm like, are you not paying attention? Like, guys, what's the catchphrase? Who understates? Catchphrase time.
Kids and nanas, baby.
Kids and nanas are the only ones who understand this shit. I had fun with that first segment. Like, I popped for it. Oh, Jason?
Yeah, that was genuinely a highlight of the night. Because you know me, more Mortal Kombat, better wrestling. That cinematic stuff is a step in that direction. In a haunted house, is this just a regular haunted house, or is there wrestle magic at work here? With just enough of that, sprinkle a little bit of that in, and oh yeah, I was having a great time. And Jacy Jayne is a wonderful character actor, man.
She is.
Her facial expressions and her comedic timing with everything is just so good, man. She's so funny.
Yeah, it was spot on. Like it was really a well done, cheesy segment. Rob, what did you think?
Yeah, exactly. And it was a take on, people met, the hot chick in the horror house and the haunted house in a horror movie. They all get picked off one at a time. And the people in horror movies making incredibly stupid decisions. It was just a takeoff on all of that.
Yeah.
and I thought it was very funny. I thought it was hilarious. And the part with the refrigerator.
I think I made the comment to you guys. I'm like, Jacy Jayne is about to end up like Kyle Rayner's girlfriend.
Yes.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
Yeah. And
let's live that down 30 years later.
Yeah.
Side quest there. What a horrifying delivery that was.
Yeah.
Finding his girlfriend hacked up in the refrigerator. That's just terrible.
That's bad. Yeah.
See, I always thought when I read it as a kid, because it was Major Force that did it.
Yeah.
I always thought she was just crumpled up, not like hacked to pieces.
No, she was.
Because they never show anything. They never show any blood. They never show anything. It's just her legs sticking out. And because in a way, that's worse, man. If she just got
squished and stuffed in. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
But the second half of that match, man, was an excellent sprint. Like it was not a long match. I don't think it went maybe 10. I don't have the times in front of me. It doesn't matter.
It was
but
it was about 7 or 8 minutes.
Okay, so
match.
that's a nice sprint of a match, especially for something that had an almost 10-minute lead in earlier on in the show with the cinematic stuff. I got to tell you, from a wrestling standpoint, this match was a highlight for me. And I got to give, and I know I've done it before, and I know there are people, the circle we run in, people may disagree with us. Mandy Rose has turned into one hell of a sprint match wrestler.
Yep.
Yeah, and I agree.
Yep.
And this was 7 minutes long. They just went tilt for the whole 7 minutes. And I'm assuming they probably got cut for time.
Probably.
Yeah, out of all, which I mean they could have cut some of these other matches and given minutes, but I mean, but for what it was, I thought they did an excellent job. And we've talked before about how for a long time and these matches had like just a ton of interference. It didn't happen here till the end. And so we've talked a bunch of times how she's gotten better at this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And also how they put her in better situations as far as matches, because she just they didn't put her in any situations where she's been hung out to dry, which they did main roster a good bit to her, and she's also stepped up here and gotten better at this stuff. And so now, I mean, and we have a few people in our timeline who were just like, oh, when is she gonna lose this thing?
Yeah.
And to that, and then they should have been called up months ago. All right, and so
do what?
To do what?
Right, and that's what I was going to say. And called up to do what? I mean, what, are you going to have her lose to Bianca in June or July?
Yeah, if you call Mandy Rose up now, she's doing the job.
Okay, and our other favorite question with that: who sits down?
Who sits down?
Well, I mean, now, there was a time where I would have said, well, now somebody might actually get sat down when she comes back up now.
Well, sure.
And so the big question is who. But
right.
But there was no point in bringing them up this year. If you had brought them up to Raw, she would have just been taking the L to Bianca, in June or July, which would have been pointless, really. And if you brought them up to SmackDown, and were you going to insert her into the kind of messy picture that was going on over there? Really?
Yeah.
Or even worse, she goes up and wins it from Bianca, only for Bianca to win it back at something and pisses everybody off.
That wouldn't help anything. And then
exactly, that's what I'm saying.
Or what, you have her beat Liv and lose to Ronda?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, whatever.
Which, I mean, but those were like the high watermark possibilities had they gone up this year.
Yeah.
She would have the absolute maximum thing that could have happened was she would have gotten a win over one of the two women's champions. And I don't think they wouldn't have booked her to beat Bianca. She'd have just been but I mean, at best, she would have beat Liv for the SmackDown title and then lost it to Ronda a month. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, do you really want to call them up for that?
No.
I mean, no. I mean, just no. I mean, now.
So go ahead, Rob. Finish your thought, and then I've got a question.
Oh, because now look, they got one more of these specials in December. She's going to lose it there, guys. Okay.
Now let's go around the room with my question. Thinking about the current NXT women's roster, and given the fact that the women, we've already established that Roxanne and Cora Jade are going to get there. They're not there yet. In this current crop of NXT women, just real quick around the room, Jason, you go first. Who beats Mandy Rose?
I feel like it's Alba Fire.
So you feel like there's more mileage to be pumped out of this. Okay.
Yeah, well, yeah, and even if you let it cool for a little bit and then get back on it when you're about in the in the lead up to the special that Rob's talking about. Yeah, because I just feel like everybody else is I don't know, $2 million.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm forgetting some people, but I don't know.
Well,
And then other
Zoe
people, I just
Stark.
don't.
Zoe
Yeah, I
Stark
just
would
don't
have been
see Zoe Stark.
my choice,
But
but she's otherwise occupied right now.
yeah, and I just don't see it otherwise.
Yeah.
Just does that look like it? Yeah, knee-jerk reaction to what we talked about last week or 2 weeks ago. Do they look like a champion? And right now it's just like no.
No, not with Zoe Stark. All right, Rob.
Nope.
Who beats Mandy Rose?
Yeah, Alba Fire.
I think Alba is the first choice because she hasn't been beaten clean yet. I mean, there's been interference. They can always set up some type of match where, where JC and Gigi are banned from ringside, or Alba gets some people to back her up and walk off, and she finally gets the drop on Mandy and beats her. You can do that. That's easy. It needs to be somebody with a veteran because, like Jason was saying, most of the women there are green as hell.
Yeah.
I mean, when you consider that Cora and Roxanne is one of the more experienced women. She's 20 years old. Okay. So the rest of those women there, as much as a lot of people on our timeline rant and rave over how wonderful they are already, those girls are mostly working 3 and 4 minute matches. Reason for that. And none of those, I mean, they're all too green. So it needs to be somebody who's some type of veteran, and that Alba's the first choice. And so I'm thinking through it. The only other real veteran woman down there is Wendy Chu.
Yeah.
Because she's been working for a while. She worked for Ring of Honor before she came there. And I think a lot of people don't know that, but her and Alba are like the only real veterans there right now.
Right.
Somebody because you need somebody who you can not just put the belt on, but they got to be able to work with all of these new girls, and they got to be able to put on a halfway decent match with whichever one of these new girls they get put with in a match. And right now, that's 2 people. That's Alba and Wendy. That's it.
Yeah, because I don't think is Mako still part of the active roster, or was that that triple threat match kind of her swan song with WWE?
I think she was just there for that weekend because she worked the match like on that following Tuesday, I think, and so I think she was just there for that trip. And
I wonder if they're going to keep her on for the European brand.
Probably.
I would hope so. They need that kind of experience for whatever women they're going to bring in.
Yeah.
And Mako is that experienced hand that you want there for that.
And so you need somebody, and you need some type of veteran to hold that title going forward.
Yeah.
Andy. So I think they got 2 choices, and that's it. And I'm gonna need some of y'all to kind of see the forest for the trees. Y'all supposed to be.
All right. Well, let's move on to the main event for the NXT World Heavyweight Championship. Champion Braun Breaker versus Ilja Dragunov and JD McDonough. I told you guys, I don't remember whether it was on the show or whether it was in chat. I have really, really, really had a hard time completely committing to Braun Breaker. Like, the dude checks off most of the boxes. He can talk. He looks incredible. He passes the eye test. He is a phenomenal athlete. He's way too green for the position he's been put in. I have been waiting for Braun Breaker to turn that corner. And I think Saturday night, for me personally, I think Braun Breaker is starting to turn that corner. Now, it's very obvious that JD and Dragunov did a lot of the heavy lifting, but Braun's timing is getting better. His ring awareness is getting better. He's starting to figure out the rest of it. I thought this match was incredible on all accounts. Jason?
I loved it because I've really been a fan of Ilja for a little while. Just quietly watching NXT UK, and just his run as champion was really fun. I liked the babyface, fiery champion when it's not a little kid, when it's not, Daniel Bryan, the shorter than everyone, and like, okay, whatever. No, I'm just the fiery babyface heel because I'm a good family man, but I like whipping ass. So yeah, Ilya was awesome in this match. JD was too, and yeah, like you said, DJ, Braun kind of started to figure it out because I think, yes, Ilya and JD were probably quarterbacking that thing, but he was not waiting for every single cue, if that makes sense. He was just going.
And that's something that we've talked about on this show before. And I think Rob's exact words were, it's almost like paint by number. It's like, okay, yep. I need to be here and I'm going to do that move. Then I need to be here and I'm going to do that move. He's starting to get a little more fluid and a little more natural in that ring. And again, I'm talking a lot of this to inexperience. I don't think the guy has 4 dozen total matches under his belt.
Right.
But he's undeniable in presence. So you've got to do something with this guy. He's absolutely someone you put on TV. And for the men's division, for what they're trying to promote, Braun Breaker's the guy. And, 5 years from now, Braun Breaker's really going to be the guy. So, but I keep reminding myself the guy's been in the business a year, maybe year and a half tops. This is the developmental brand.
Right.
Okay. He's developing, and it's where my mindset was 3 months ago is different from where it is now. 3 months ago, I was like, what the fuck are they doing here with this guy? He's not ready for this. Now, I'm enjoying watching the growth. I'm enjoying watching the evolution of Braun Breaker, and the fact that he has the NXT World Championship makes no difference to me. Like, I'm watching this guy grow, and that's fascinating to me.
You've been watching him develop.
And that's fascinating. And the fact, like you said, the fact that he's the champ, there's not really anybody else on that brand. Yes, there may be better in-ring workers, but when I look at what this business is and be real and honest with myself, Braun Breaker is the only man on that roster that should be sitting in that spot right now.
He's a perfectly wonderful developmental champion.
Bingo.
You take all those words and you put them together, that's exactly what he's doing. Don't try to compare him to, Impact champion or AEW champion or, Universal or whatever.
And that's the difference between NXT Black and Gold and NXT getting back to its developmental roots. Yep. Braun had no background for this. And when this was, previously Triple H's little indie promotion with a budget, we got the guys who had 8-10 years of indie experience at the top of the card. We got the Drew McIntyres. We got
former world champions.
Right. But even from when they were developing, Seth Rollins still came in with an indie background.
Yeah.
Right.
All these people, look at Shinsuke Nakamura. Shinsuke Nakamura came in with damn near 20 years experience.
Right.
Now we're back to this brand being developmental. It's the same thing with Mandy Rose. We've said the same, and I had to look at this the same way. They put the championship on Mandy Rose. Mandy Rose's early matches as champion were not fabulous. Like Rob has said, she was, they kept her, they either gimmicked them up or they had a ton of interference to make her look better. Now Mandy Rose is firing on all cylinders. They're doing the exact same thing with Braun Breaker. They're developing him while developing a character that is main event level and believable. And my opinion on where I'm at with Braun Breaker is much different than it was 3 months ago.
That's good, because I've really enjoyed the ride with him as well.
Yeah, I just had to change the way I looked at it. It was a me thing, I think.
Because for me, honestly, when it got around to this match, because I had gotten to the point with his matches where I was just like, okay, because it just seemed like, again, like you had said, paint by numbers. But I stuck with this one, and it was really good. And and like I said, you could see where JD and where Dragon, you could see the spots where they were like kind of handling everything. But he didn't look lost or foggy in there at all this time. There weren't any obvious spots where you could see they had to bring him along. Which in some of those matches, again, me even not having ever been in a ring, I mean, there were some of those earlier matches with his. It was obvious where the veteran guy was kind of leading him along or having to help pull him out of the weeds there. And didn't see any of that this time. And so yeah, I mean, there's definitely been improvement. And now, because I just looked it up. He's only had 48 matches. So
right at the 4 dozen mark.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so now I guess now the question is, okay, so how much longer do we do this with him down there? The thing about that is, again, like what we were talking about with Toxic Attraction, you bring him up now, bring him up to do what?
There's nothing for him on the main roster right now.
Right.
There's so many things going on between Raw and SmackDown. Braun Breaker is much better served staying in NXT right now.
Yeah, because again, we're talking about a potential, some guy that they obviously see as a main event guy in the future. I don't think you would not do him any favors bringing him up now and having him, working the mid card on, the second hour Raw every week or something, right? I don't think I don't think that does anything for him at this point. And because obviously he wouldn't be a main eventer right now on the main roster. And if that's because we were talking last year about, the kind of the tracking when people come up and how if you're going to be a big deal on the main roster, you usually get kind of tracked that way from the beginning. There aren't a lot of people who came in as just a low-level person from NXT, and I don't think anybody's come in at a lower level and gotten to the top. Some people have started low and gotten to the middle, but if they have big things in mind for you, they usually bring you in that way, doing something big from the beginning. Right now, there's no space for him to do anything big upon arrival right now.
Right.
So there's just, I would keep him down there, maybe till next year, maybe, right? Sometime next year or late next year, because it's just, there's no point. I mean, because he's only had 48 matches. I don't think he's not going to be served right now by doing a bunch of 6-minute matches on TV, on the main roster. I don't think that helps him at all.
Not for what they want him to do.
Right. And then I mean, and by putting him in that spot, you run the risk of people seeing him as a mid-card guy. And it's hard to shake that. It's hard to shake that perception.
Yeah.
And it just is. Once if you spend a year or so as a mid-card guy, like somebody, look, as talented as Chad Gable is, right? I think he's, as far as perception, what he is what he is right now.
Well, I use Kevin Owens as the example. They brought Kevin Owens in and immediately put him into a program with John Cena.
Yes.
And Kevin Owens is easily a guy you can slot into the main event of any pay-per-view.
Right.
And he's been there, regardless of what the internet wrestling community might tell you about, Kevin Owens' main roster career. Kevin Owens has been very well protected and very well taken care of on WWE's main roster, both under the Vince McMahon and now under the Triple H era. Kevin Owens has had an awesome main roster career, and it started his leaping off point was against John Cena. You do something similar to that with Braun Breaker. If your designs for him are to be at the top or near the top of the card, that's the route you go.
Yeah, he needs to come in.
So anyone who says Kevin Owens was mistreated or not properly used or not used to his full potential or whatever with Kevin Owens, he was a Universal Champion when both Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins were a viable option.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's a case of tell me you don't watch the show without telling me you don't watch the show.
Right.
Yeah, you're just flat out wrong.
And neither one of those guys beat him.
Oh, and by the way, he got Steve Austin. He was trusted with Steve Austin at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Facts.
No big deal.
So, and look, we're not gonna run through all the names, but just take some time. Look at the people who come from NXT and have been a big deal on the main roster in some way or another, or just look at the people who've come from NXT and have main evented a pay-per-view at some point.
Yeah.
They all came in hot.
Yep.
From NXT. None of them came in working in tag teams or working in the mid card. Okay. They all came in hot and doing something high up early on. So you keep him down there until you have something like that to involve him in. You don't, I mean, and don't, because otherwise there's no point. There's no point.
Don't waste his or our time or your own time.
Right. And do we really want a year of wrestling Twitter talking about him being misused?
No, I don't want 5 minutes of that.
I don't want a 3-month Dolph Ziggler Braun Breaker feud.
No.
Another one?
No. Not
like,
at all.
No.
So quick round the room question, then we're going to get into some more NXT business. Real quick, 2023 Royal Rumble, Braun Breaker, yes or no? Jason?
Is he
not
in
winner,
it? Yeah.
Not winner.
Yeah.
Do you see him in
Yep.
it?
He's absolutely in it. He comes out with like an NXT, banner and whatnot, and it's not like a move. It's one night only. But yeah, sure.
Okay.
He's in it, and he probably even eliminates a couple of people.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, they did it with either Adam Cole or Andrade or both of them.
Yeah.
1 year. So yeah, you can do it.
Yeah.
I think
this year's that's a good match for him.
Yeah. And now who I do think goes up soon is Carmelo.
I was gonna say if
Carmelo Hayes is.
If not Braun Breaker, I think Carmelo Hayes is in the Royal Rumble as a SmackDown or Raw superstar.
Yeah. I do think you send him up now because there's nothing for him to do, and I do think he is a guy that you can start, in a mid-cardish kind of thing, but who can go up, from that.
I could see Johnny do that too. Johnny's kind of stuck there now, but yeah, I could see Johnny move up.
Yeah,
because so Rob, to your point, there are guys that could do that.
Right.
Not to fly in the face of your examples, but
yeah.
But
all right. Oh, go ahead, Rob.
I think out of everyone there, Carmelo, I think, because there's nothing else for him to do. There's no point in him winning the North American title again, and there's no point. There's no point in him beating Braun for the main title. There's no point.
No, it was part of the gimmick, but the fact, like how he carried himself as the A champ, yes, it was the gimmick, but literally there's no reason to rehash it all with the NXT championship. Right. Because he did everything that the A champ does. That's how he carried himself.
Right.
So, job done, man.
Yeah, and to me, it's just a matter. I mean, the real question is, what are you going to do with Trick, right? Are you going to bring Trick with him, or are you going to leave Trick down there?
Yeah.
Well, and that was going to be a question that I wanted to save, when we talk Carmelo at another time. Do you send Trick up with him, or do you leave Trick down there to cook a little longer? That's a question we can table.
Okay, yeah. Because I think there are a couple different ways you can handle that. I mean,
all right. Well, let's table that and let's move on to big debut on Tuesday night on NXT. Ava Rayne, otherwise, to the smart marks, The Rock's daughter, and that was met with some mixed emotion last night, man. My timeline was kind of split 50-50. Some people get it. Some people understand. Some people, I guess, expected, Miss Rock to come out on NXT TV and be her dad. And that, to me, that's just ridiculous. Like, you need to let this girl stand on her own. I have my own feelings about pairing them with SCHISM. We had a very long discussion privately with last week's guest host, Mr. Ray Cash. Not going to rehash that entire segment. I think Ray feels much differently about SCHISM than I do. I'm not a fan. I don't care for the gimmick. It's not roping me in. It's not catching my attention. So initially when I saw, I was like, okay, Ava Rayne, I can dig the name. I questioned, okay, why would you want to saddle them with a gimmick that, for me personally, makes me want to change the channel, and not in a good way. Like, there's some gimmicks that are designed to piss you off. Like, God, I hate these guys. Get them off my TV. I wish I could see somebody punch him in the mouth. And that's the hook, is that you want to see somebody punch him in the mouth. I could care less whether or not anybody punches out Joe Gacy. And to me, that's the disconnect as a heel. And when I revealed Ava Rayne as being a part of that, I'm like, I want to see what she's got. I want to see what she grows into. But now I'm forced to watch Schism to do it. And for me, that's like, I'm going to sit with it. I'm going to rock with it. But I don't know. It's like, yeah, Rob, what are your thoughts?
All right, because like I'm just not interested in Schism. They just, I mean, I said this in the chat. I didn't like they put the grizzled young vets with Gacy. I think that's just a bad fit. But I'm not, I don't care about them, and so. And now, before I get going here, those of y'all who wanted, it's very ironic to see people saying, "Why she got to be something so different? Why can't she, follow her family heritage?" Oh, really now?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure you guys will treat her entirely different how you treated the last daughter of a Hall of Fame wrestler who actually did not,
And
and
there
who,
she is.
All right.
and might I add, this, she did not actually follow her family heritage immediately. It was not for like over a year. Okay. And y'all, okay. So yeah, I'm really sure that if Simone Johnson did a similar kind of thing, I'm really sure you guys would treat her so much better.
Jason, he
Right.
found a way to shoehorn Charlotte in there.
Well, look, this isn't even like, I'm just saying that these people are full of shit. They would treat her the
Yeah.
same way they treat, because y'all treat the women differently. They're not allowed to follow in the family footsteps, and you're only saying it now because she didn't do it. Okay. And you know good and damn well that if she came out there as, Simone Johnson, or what, even if she had a different first name or whatever, y'all know good and damn well that y'all would give her a whole bunch of crap if she basically was just the next generation of the Johnson family.
I am so sick of hearing you only have this job because of who your daddy is.
Right.
You people, and I mean you people, would absolutely cook her if she came out there in her first promo, asked if you could smell what she was cooking.
Yeah.
You guys would roast her.
If people were handed stuff just because of who their daddy was, Curtis Axel would be like a 5-time world heavyweight champion, because his daddy sits at the top of the list of guys who everybody feels was the greatest wrestler to never win a world heavyweight championship in either WWE or WCW. So, this is the problem that a lot of these legacy wrestlers face. Is the online crowd of, you're only here because your daddy, shut up, go talk to Curtis Axel and see what being Mr. Perfect's kid got him other than an opportunity.
And let me just say, it's different, and the women get treated differently because we see everybody encouraging Braun Breaker to do freaking Scott 2.0 or 3.0 or whatever.
Yep.
And y'all know good and damn well y'all don't treat women the same.
Yeah.
And it's not just in the wrestling business, it's in all other professions. The son who follows in dad's footsteps is a hero. He's carrying on the tradition, et cetera, et cetera. The girl who does that is, again, she's only here because of her daddy.
She's living off her daddy's fame.
And that's
right.
Wrestling, that's any other profession. It's business, it's politics.
That's just human nature.
Right.
And I'm not, believe that is not me putting it over. Let me be perfectly clear.
No, yeah.
That is not me putting that over.
Right. I mean, exactly. So we're not, I'm not buying all of that from you people. But now getting back to this,
I dig the name Ava Rayne.
Yeah, I like that name.
Right out of the gate, I dig that.
Now, and
that's cool.
Putting her with Schism basically means that, well, I'm not more likely to watch Schism because she's in there now. I'm not.
See, I will. Because I want to see what her trajectory is.
I want to see her. I want to see what she does. And well, thankfully, look, that's what the YouTube clips are for. so you can watch 3 minutes of it and see what she does instead of sitting through 10 minutes of it.
Yeah.
But I mean, look at it like this. Okay, if she turns out to be good, they're going to break her out of the group. She's not going to stay in that group if she's good.
Right.
It's not going to happen. If she turns out to be good, they're going to break her out of that group, even if they're still around in a year or whatever, right? But if she's good, as soon as she shows signs of being good, they're going to put things in motion to get her out of the group. So you shouldn't be worried about that. Now, if she's not any good, doesn't matter what group you put her in. Okay?
Yeah.
If she stinks, you could put her in the bloodline. If she stinks, it won't matter.
Yeah, and I said that on the timeline. I posted on Twitter today. I'm like, if she ends up stinking, it's not going to be because she was with Schism. It's going to be because she just does not have a natural talent for this. And I was trying to logic it to myself. I wrote it. I was like, okay, I don't care for Schism. I can sit here as a indifferent viewer of Schism and say, okay, why did they do that? But one, where else were they going to put her as a debut? What else were they going to do with her? And two, Joe Gacy's a hell of a worker. Like, he really is. He's a ring veteran. He's a hell of a worker. If you're going to stick her out there with someone who can kind of bring her along, and to be fair to him, he cuts a great promo. He believes wholeheartedly in this character. That is a tree that she can sit under and say, okay, whatever my character is, I need to believe in it. I need to feel it, because if I don't feel it, they're not going to feel it. And I think Joe Gacy is good for that for her. And I think if she's got any natural aptitude for this, he'll be the guy to kind of bring that out of her. Jason, your thoughts?
You kind of stole my thunder with Gacy there, because I was about to give my thoughts on Schism. It's like, I don't have a reason to care.
Yes.
I really want to like Joe Gacy because he's a compelling promo, even kind of like in the vein of Bray Wyatt. Like, you're a compelling promo even when you're speaking nonsense. I'm like, well, but it's nonsense that sounds good.
He articulates very well.
Yeah, and he's a hell of a worker in the ring. But I just don't quite get the why of Schism. Like, what are you actually here for? What are we doing? And like the Undertaker at one point said, I'm going to take over the world, and I got to take over the world by winning the WWE champion, or WWF at the time, championship. Okay, at least doesn't make a lick of sense, but all right, at least he gave something.
It's simply comprehensible motivation.
Yeah, exactly. Just give me something. Give me 2 + 2 = 4. Okay, great. So far, he's given me 2 plus something equals something. But I think this is great for her, because everything you said about Gacy in terms of just being a veteran in that regard, and in terms of the character work and all that, like you said, he believes it and he does it very well. And this is just going to be a nothing thing for her. And if she's any good at it, it'll be a nothing thing. It'll be terrorizing. It'll be Rocky Maivia. It'll be, whatever, bad gimmick number one for everyone's favorite wrestler. They all had one.
Yeah.
I remember Roman Reigns, actually, he kind of, morphed the tribal chief from his old NXT character, but he used to be a pompous asshole who wore suits, and not in the fun way that he does now. Like, in a kind of a, man, you're not too great at this. In any case, this will be, if she's good, this will be a nothing forgotten gimmick in a year. And if she's not, then all right, she just does this and we enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, this is basically, this is like a free thing here, right? And
it's experience.
Yeah, and that's what it is. And
reps.
And then that's all. And I wouldn't worry about it. And look, almost every other woman, look, do you really want another, hi, I'm Simone, I'm a young woman wrestler, I'm here for NXT? I mean, they got like a dozen of those already.
I'm here to wrestle.
Yeah, I mean,
all
they
right.
got, and they show some little vignette of her playing tennis or skateboarding or something, like they do with all the other newer women there. And and is that what y'all want?
Yeah.
I mean, because and that sounds like I'm not slighting the other women. I'm just saying the presentation for so many of the younger women there, the newer women there, that's what it is. It's just, hi, I'm so and so. Look at me surfing. Look at
I've
me
always
Right.
wanted to do this.
Yeah,
This is my lifelong dream,
right.
and now I'm in NXT.
and
And I'm in a setting that gives you the vibe of my character.
Right.
exactly. Exactly. Like and then and that's they got a dozen of them there already. All right, and you don't need another one. All right. You don't need another one on TV doing the exact same thing. So it's good that they gave her something different. And again, and look, if it totally tanks, it doesn't matter because
Not at all.
she's part of the group. If it tanks, it's a bad gimmick anyway.
Yeah.
And all that really matters is that basically that she comes out of this showing that she has some type of aptitude to do this at this level. That's all that matters. And if she does, then again, they'll break her out of the group. And if not, then she'll be going home soon anyway.
Yeah.
That's the case. I mean, and that and so what we always say, just watch the show.
Just watch the show. Mindless Wrestling Podcast catchphrase night.
Just watch the show.
Either she's good or she isn't.
Yep.
And
that's all we need to know.
I mean,
all right, so let's move on from that a little bit. And I'm going to let Rob take the reins here a little bit on he shared something in the chat with some comments that the artist formerly known as Lana, now known as CJ Perry, made about AEW's booking process and what actually goes on backstage. I think there's been some misconception. Mr. Rob, if you would take the wheel.
Okay, so I'm going to read this. And what's funny is that this was printed in the Wrestling Observer, which it's funny that these comments would be printed there because we know that the Wrestling Observer has for a long time has been state-run media for
Absolutely.
Okay.
Boy, has the bloom fallen off of that rose.
Yeah. So here we go. Okay. So all right, and for those of y'all who've forgotten, CJ's husband is Miro, formerly Rusev in the WWE. And he has not been on TV for a while in AEW, apparently, which I was not keeping track of. But here we go.
Wasn't he injured for a bit?
I think so, but according to what people said in my timeline, he was cleared a while back.
Okay.
So as Perry was asked why she thinks AEW does not use Miro regularly on its programming. I have a lot of opinions about this. Tony Khan has a vision. At the end of the day, I think there's this illusion at AEW that the talent booked the show. That was definitely the conversation. Oh, you go there, you're going to basically become whatever you're made of. But at the end of the day, he's booking the show. And it's really no different than WWE. It's just a different director and a different person's point of view. All right, here is the money line right here. Okay, Tony Khan has his favorites, and he's going to push the favorites just like Vince would push his favorites, just like Hunter is going to push his people.
Ouch.
Ooh, it stings. It burns. It burns.
It burns us.
Woo, buddy.
How hard is that passage to read for some people?
And of course, she got she was getting cooked in the replies and in the quotes on this.
Oh God, the people that cape for that company.
And yeah, I mean, look, you're going to make it bad for him like you did in WWE. You need to be quiet. And there's a whole lot of that going on in the quotes and replies.
How much worse can it be? They're not even fucking using him. Yeah. You're sitting in catering at best. If worse, you're sitting at home.
Yeah. And so for me, those of you people who swore up and down that this place was going to be different, you were wrong. But more importantly, the wrestling media who were pumping that line for over 2 years that it's different there. Okay. I mean, look, it's one thing if fans talk themselves into believing that, then that's their fault. If they fall for the Carney promoters bullshit, I mean, at this point, if you're a smart fan and you're falling for Carney promoters bullshit, that's your fault also. Okay. But the wrestling media people they were pushing this line for a couple of years. It was so different. Oh, their locker room doesn't have any problems. And then,
boy, has that turned up.
But the best part about that is this year, when the problems came out into the public, some of these same wrestling journalists, what did they say? Oh, that's exactly what we were hearing a few months ago.
Right.
Well, then why didn't you tell us then?
We knew all along, whatever.
Right? They knew. They sat on it. They knew. They sat on it.
Tony Khan is living real life what Joe Gacy's gimmick is supposed to be. He's this freaking Kool-Aid salesman that brings in all these wayward children and tries to make everybody believe that his vision is the right vision.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just,
God damn, the cocaine in the Kool-Aid.
And no, but I guess my real vitriol is for the wrestling media folks who, the ones who he invited. I mean, he invited them backstage, hang out, and they knew what was going on. And so many of these folks, they sat on it. Okay, and they knew it, and they sat on it for months. And then when it got out to the point where they couldn't cover it up anymore, then they were like, "Oh, well, that's exactly what we were hearing."
I told you guys months and months and months ago that I thought they knew what was really going on backstage, but they were afraid to drop a dime because they didn't want him to pull the, to pull the key away from him, because he opened the doors to them, like you just said. He's let them in, taught them the secret handshake, and they're all afraid they're going to be disinvited to the party.
Right. And now that they
lose their precious access.
Yeah. And now that the stuff has gotten out to the point where they can't hide it anymore. Now they're trying to be actual reporters.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the only actual journalist, what's his name, Ariel Helwani?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's out there asking the hard questions, and Tony Khan can't answer shit. And not just the stuff that legally he shouldn't be answering, but some of the more simple questions that Ariel was asking, stuff that are not part of a legal, ongoing legal issue. He should have been able to answer, and his answer was pretty much, well, I can't talk about that, or I don't want to talk about that. I'm just like, jackass. God, he really is a wrestling promoter in the worst possible, definition of that word.
Yeah. And, and look, now Vince just didn't talk to anybody.
No.
And, in a way I can kind of look, yes, I know we're WWE fans mainly here, but I can respect you just not talking to me than saying telling me you're going to talk to me and then ducking and dodging.
Right.
You freeze me out. Hey, well, you're the boss, so okay.
It just cracks me up that the stuff that everybody used to get so pissy about Vince over, pushing his favorites, only wanting this one, only wanting that one. The same shit is, it's almost like this is the wrestling business, boys and girls, and the WWE and Vince McMahon were not an island in all this.
Remember when Tony Khan said he wasn't going to be an on-screen character?
Oh, yeah.
Would that last a month?
Yeah. I think it did like 2.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
And now, I mean, Tony's out here doing meet and greets.
Oh, yeah.
What are we doing?
What are we doing, man?
Told us it was going to be different. Now, those of us who were cynical about these kind of things didn't believe it. I mean,
No, I'm pretty sure there was a podcast somewhere who told you guys, pay attention, because the wrestling business is the wrestling business. And we also told you that one day the wheels were going to come off the bus. And when the rubber meets the road, Tony Khan was not going to be able to take the heat. And here we are. 3.5 years later, it is absolutely falling apart at the seams. And while for the workers, I hate to see it, because I was very excited about a place for people to go and get paid, and having a second place to go where they could make a comfortable living for themselves. It pisses me off that Tony Khan, as a singular person, makes me not even want to try and find and watch this show. I have not been shy at all about how I have absolutely no desire to watch AEW. I don't watch it beyond what little bit I see on the internet. And he singularly is the reason why at this point. It's not even the talent, because there's a lot of talent on that show I would love to see. I'd love to see Keith Lee. I'd love to see Adam Cole. Mm-hmm. I'd love to see Jon Moxley. I'd love to see what Sting's doing, just because I've said that on this show. What little bit I've seen from Sting, AEW is doing with Sting what WWE should have been doing with Sting. So there are things that they're doing that I would be interested in watching and following. Tony Khan absolutely pulls me away from that. And as bad as Tony Khan, they're fans, like the diehards, the people that came for him. I'm not talking about people like Brooklyn Ike who watch it, enjoy it, but also understand what's really going on over there. I would love to be a fan like Brooklyn Ike, but I can't. I can't watch it.
Oh boy.
I haven't had a Brooklyn Ike shout out in a minute, man.
Yeah.
I hope he doesn't think we forgot.
Look,
Ike's a brother to the show.
Yes, he is the original supporter of all of us.
Yeah.
1,000%. He has been
might be
with us since day one.
I was gonna say, as a unit, he might be our day one is H guy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Brooklyn Ike.
Yeah.
Yeah. So shout out Brooklyn Ike. Shout out.
Yeah.
Shout out.
And so,
all right, one more last little piece of business here, and this was something that I found. I shared in the group chat, and I'm going to bring this up here, and I'm going to credit Wrestling News, and we're going to play along here a little bit because I don't know how credible WrestlingNewsCo.com or net, whatever they are. I don't know how credible they are as a wrestling news source, but supposedly in the new year, a lot of the gimmick-themed pay-per-views are going to be going away, and the most notable one is the Hell in a Cell as an event, not the match itself. But the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view is, quote unquote, completely dead. And what I wanted to do here is kind of put our let's pretend hats on, pretend this is real news, because I want to get your opinions on this. If this actually ends up being legitimate and WWE is doing away with the pay-per-view themed gimmicks like Hell in a Cell, like Elimination Chamber, would you be okay with that as long as they kept the matches as an attraction on different pay-per-views? Jason, I'm going to start with you.
Absolutely. I'm totally fine with that, because then Hell in a Cell is, supposed to be the most brutal way to settle a feud that we possibly have. It shouldn't be, we shouldn't, start some feuds in like June, March, whatever, and then go, oh, this will be over in October. Because, we're just building towards Hell in a Cell, and it kind of just ruins the whole believability timeline. So that's number one. And then you just have more flexibility. Like, obviously, if you have a whole pay-per-view of Hell in a Cell matches, so you have maybe a men's and a women's, maybe even a third one, then that really lessens the impact if in, February, or, I don't know, June, again, somebody says, you, me, Bubba, Hell in a Cell. Well, it's like, oh, okay, that's cool, we're doing it, but we see that every year. Now, if it's like a thing, like, oh, Hell in a Cell, wow, we haven't seen one of those in like 18 months. That's crazy. So it can be an actual thing. The only one that I don't see going away, or at least maybe it won't have its own month, but it will definitely be announced far, far ahead of time, is War Games. And that's just because they lose so many seats when they build the damn, thing.
Yeah, the double ring, double cage.
That has to be on your calendar ahead of time.
Yeah. All right. Rob, what do you think? What are your thoughts on like I said, we're going with this being actual news. What are your thoughts?
Well, okay, so the tricky thing about the gimmick pay-per-views is, like Jason said, is that, after a year or two, after a while, it's like, again, the feuds just conveniently start in time for them to have the gimmick match at the gimmick pay-per-view, right? And it just, and we played along. I mean, it's not, but it is kind of dumb. And also, I mean, particularly with Hell in a Cell. Okay, so if you have a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, now you can't just have one cell match like this year. Because this year they only had one, And then people were like, well, that's it, just one, right? And because at that point, like none of the women's feuds at that point had reached that were going and had reached that kind of level of where you would go in there, and so they didn't have one. And if you have the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, then you have to have multiple cell matches, or else people are going to be like, well, why call it Hell in a Cell if you only have one? And which is a valid complaint, by the way. I'm not, I'm not for
No,
once.
it's
I'm
not.
not. For once, I'm
No,
not.
it's not.
It.
The Royal Rumble. You ever
Okay.
been to a pay-per-view called the Royal Rumble?
Wait, true.
I mean, up until recently, now there are 2 Royal Rumbles, but up until
and
recently,
you have of the 200-person roster, you have potentially 60 people now on the pay-per-view who otherwise wouldn't have been.
True. But look, I think getting rid of Hell in a Cell as a pay-per-view is fine, like as long as they keep the match, because like Jason was saying, the match has more meaning if it gets announced out of the blue, or if it gets announced, as because some feuds reach the high point in March or in September or whatever, and so now, you don't have to book feuds to match up with the gimmick pay-per-view. You don't have, because they got rid of TLC already, but so now you don't have to book a feud to line up with Hell in a Cell, and now I do think now they're doing Elimination Chamber. That's already been announced. And for me, I think that's the one you keep as is, because those matches have basically it's to determine something for WrestleMania, and
yeah,
and to have an elimination kind of match to determine a number one contender or determine who is going to be holding one of the titles going to WrestleMania. To me, that actually makes sense. And the Elimination Chamber matches are not necessarily, they're not feud centered, right? So you don't have to, because you don't have 6 people who magically start beefing with each other, the month before, right? You don't have that. They never did that for Elimination Chamber. It's always, the champion with 5 contenders or 6 contenders fighting to be who will be the number one contender. That's how Elimination Chamber has always been. So I think that's probably why they're going to keep that as is. That's the one I would keep as is. But the rest, and then then like when they used to have TLC, right? So you have to have a certain number of TLC matches, and then but now, we also need to have a tables match. We also need to have a ladder match. We also need to have a chairs match, which is the stupidest thing, right?
They went even further one year. They had tables and ladders and chairs and stairs. Oh
yeah,
my.
And that's
awful.
It's just it's too stupid. All right.
Yeah.
We got to have a chairs match. Like, it's just dumb. And we got to have a tables match for these people. No, it just got too stupid.
Yeah.
So, and then look, to me, getting real TLC was a good call, because February is mail at the end time. They do the holiday tour, but other than that, and we should be happy about that, because you don't want these folks overworked in December, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
And also, so for me, look, it's fine. Keep, obviously they're keeping the Royal Rumble, keep Elimination Chamber for the reasons I said, but no, we don't, at this point, we don't need a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, and we don't need a TLC pay-per-view. We probably don't need an Extreme Rules pay-per-view. Look, unless if you're gonna do it in Philly every year, because that's ECW country. Okay, but we don't have to do that either. And especially since, they're not going to be doing one pay-per-view exactly every month.
Yeah.
So I think that was some of the rationale, is that, well, if we're going to do one of these every month, we can't just have, a quote-unquote regular one every month. But they're not doing one exactly every month now, and it's gotten to the point where I think they serve their purpose, and I think that purpose is moved on, and works for me.
Yeah. I'm on board with you guys. I think the Hell in a Cell as a match should be an attraction. Like, when I think back to some of the, my favorite Hell in a Cell matches, obviously Shawn and Taker in the first one. Taker and Mankind in the one that mattered. And one of my more modern favorites, Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins. Although the finish was shit, with the Fiend being involved against one of those ones, man, Seth can't escape the bullshit finish in the Hell in the Cell. But again, like the other Hell in the Cell match, and nobody wants to have this discussion, the match was great up until the finish. But it felt like an attraction, and it was definitively the match to end the feud. Like, we're ending this year, either I'm going to kill you or you're going to kill me. And that was the theme of the match. And that's what the Hell in the Cell match should be. The other thing that it eliminates when you only have one Hell in the Cell match per pay-per-view, it takes the pressure off the other Cell match. It takes the pressure off the combatants to try and one-up the other one. Because at the end of the day, you end up comparing, okay, was this Hell in the Cell match better than this Hell in the Cell match? Well, the reality was they were both really good, but now there's no pressure for saying, well, they're going to go and, these guys are going to fall off the side of a cage. Well, what are we going to do to make ours stand out? And how do you top that? Like, really, how do you top when you're latched onto the side of the cage 15 feet in the air and you both take that table bump and you're the first Cell match? How are you following that? And it's not even how you follow it, because if the other match was first, what did they offer if you guys were already booked to do the big spot? So it really takes the pressure off that, and it to me, that always lessened the punch of what was otherwise a good match. There was one a couple years ago. It was the last Hell in the Cell match that John Cena and Randy Orton had, and it was realistically, it was a fight inside the cage. It really was a fight inside the cell. They used the environment very little. They used the steps a couple of times. There were a couple other little things. But that match falls below a lot of radars because, and I forget what the other match was on the card, but the other match was like a car crash. And for those types of people, that's what they remember is the car crash. I remember John Cena and Randy Orton having a dogfight in Hell in the Cell. And it flew below a lot of radars.
Bray Wyatt and Roman Reigns also had a really good one, and that was a blow-off to their feud, and it was perfect.
Yes, that was. And again, when people sit there and complain about how much of a worker Bray Wyatt is not, I think about the work that he did with Roman Reigns, and it was absolutely brilliant stuff. And I'm not going to go down the Bray Wyatt road tonight. Yeah. I'm sure there will be plenty of opportunities to travel that path. Tonight is not the night. So, guys, I'm good if we want to take it home now, unless you guys have got something else you want to add.
I don't think so.
No? All right. Well, we'll wrap back around the room here. I'm going to say thank you and good night, like I always do, to my co-hosts. Jason, sir, awesome show tonight.
Friends, it's been a wonderful time.
Yep. And from the Rob the Genius podcast, Mr. Rob, sir, awesome, good time tonight.
Oh, and I forgot to mention, next week, I'm going behind enemy lines next week.
Oh, that's right. We're going to have some boots on the ground. What day is that show, Rob? It's Tuesday, Wednesday?
Yeah, Wednesday night I'm going.
So you're going to Dynamite?
Yes. And yes.
So
we might have to move our recording day.
Recording to Thursday night.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, we'll do that. We'll pencil that in. We usually record on Wednesdays. Rob is going to have boots on the ground from AEW Dynamite. I'm going to have boots on the ground from another NXT house show this coming weekend. We've got that going on. Going to be an interesting show next week. Interesting to get Rob's perspective from the enemy camp. Maybe being there live, because live wrestling shows are different than watching it on TV. And maybe your experience with a live show will be different than watching it on TV. Maybe you'll enjoy it more.
Yeah, and look, I have a nice Ring of Honor shirt to wear there. I'm not gonna be one of those people that wears,
boo.
Well, you want me to wear a Bloodline shirt in there?
Jason, we need him.
Oh yeah, hold on. I've been to way too many WWE shows to see way too many Bullet Club shirts and stuff like that. So if I got to take that medicine, you got to take yours. You
yeah,
people.
But Jason, we want him to come back alive.
That's true. Oh, Rob, please. They can't fight. They look at Rob and Turn tail and run.
Yeah, look, I think this is one of the places I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Look, this is not the ECW arena. Okay.
No.
All right. Well, as always, I am your host, the man with the award-winning beard. My name is DJ. This is the Mindless Wrestling Podcast. Remember, you can call it Bro Wrestling. You can call it Sports Entertainment. You can call it whatever you want, but call it in the ring. We're out of here till next week.
Waiting for this light to turn green. I'm headed to work for a boss so mean. I'm gonna be late. She's gonna be...
There are some things we should do alone, like sing in your car.
If this light doesn't turn, I'm gonna scream.
But when you gamble, you should always do it with others, because gambling with friends helps keep things in check. So go to keepitfunohio.com for more tips like this. Keep it fun, keep it social, but you're singing? Maybe keep that to yourself.
How about we heat things up tonight?
How so?
Get a little fresh, add some steam, sizzle, and spice.
Wait, you're talking about going to Outback again, aren't you? Fire things up at Outback Steakhouse. For a limited time, try our bloomin' fried shrimp or get fresh with our new strawberry salad. Go big with our bone-in ribeye or the filet and grilled shrimp on the barbie. Then cool off with a cucumber crush or peanut koala. Try them all before they're gone. Let's Outback.